To excuse the helmet today, it's a little bit windy and yeah, I was getting a lot of wind noise, so I popped my lid on to tell you about this, the Hyosung Aquila 125. So I've been riding it for a week or two now. I love getting these little 125 bikes just as a bit of contrast in comparison to the, you know, the bigger bikes that I'm often riding, and this one in particular caught my eye because of A, the looks, and B, the engine. So I'll give you a bit of a walk around, tell you about the bike, then we'll go for a spin. You see, with that big front tyre, that big fat front tyre, for a 125 it has a bit of a big bike look about it. It's definitely taken some styling cues from Harley. I mean, look at that headlight and the two round orange indicators sort of located there. It could be something like a street rod. These fork gaiters as well, they remind me of a Triumph Bobber Black or something. And then this chunky Bobber style front tyre, actually with those, well, they look a bit like semi-knobbly, semi-off-road tyres. It really reminds me of an Indian Scout. And look, like, it is a 3.5 gram bike, so I'm under no delusions that it, you know, doesn't quite look as premium as some of those bikes. But if you want a slice of that Bobber style, but you're a learner or you just want a budget bike, then it's got something about it. Now we've got fairly basic suspension, just regular looking forks at the front and some standard twin shocks with just preload adjustment there. No ABS on this bike, so a single disc at the front that's linked with this disc at the rear. So as with all 125s that don't have ABS by law, it's got to have both brakes operable with one of the levers. So the front brake lever does the front brake, but the rear brake pedal actually operates both. So not my favorite feature on these types of bike, but overall the brakes are actually pretty decent for what it is. Fairly simple setup up here, so kill switch and starter, cable throttle as you can see. On this side hazards, headlight, pass, indicators and the horn, and that's pretty much it. A nice simple clock, understated. I quite like that. With it being a cruiser bike, it has a little bit of that position, but they haven't gone too crazy, and I think it would have looked a bit daft with really far forward foot controls and ape hangers or something, but this is decent. So as you can see, that's more like a mid foot peg position, a reasonably low seat. It's actually quite nicely made, this. A bit of faux quilted suede effect there, and then some leather type panels. Obviously it's not real leather, I don't think, but it looks pretty decent, that. And yeah, overall I think they've done a nice job. That big air filter on the side is definitely a sort of Harley influence. I don't know if I'd take that badge off, and maybe this sticker at the back here doesn't quite fit for me. But overall I think it's a good looking bike. Now I did mention that the engine's the other point of interest for me, because this is the only V-twin in the 125 market at the moment. I think there used to be the Yamaha Virago 125, but you can't get that in the UK anymore. But yeah, there's the front cylinder, big air filter there, and then another one at the rear, of course. 60-degree V-twin, it makes 14 horsepower, as is the limit for this category of bike. 5 gears, so it'll do about 55 miles per hour, which is, I think it's reasonable for this style of bike. It's not really a motorway machine. But for around town and a bit of B-road, it should do the job. So one of the first things I noticed when I got this bike was that it actually feels more like a big bike, more like a, I don't know, a 500 or something, than any other 125 I've had. And I think partly that's down to the riding position, so the width of the bars, the seating position, the mid-position controls, but also like the weight of it as well. It's not a particularly heavy bike, but I just mean the balance of it. It could be that wider front tyre gives the steering the right kind of weight. And then there's also the exhaust note as well. Now it does sound like a small capacity bike, but I suppose when I hear a single, it makes me think of a 125, whereas this has a bit of that V-twin purr to it, which makes you think that you're riding something bigger than you are perhaps. And it makes decent power as well. I already said in the walk around that it's 14 horsepower. So of course if you come in from a bigger bike than this, it's going to feel fairly puny. But it revs up to about 10,000 revs, look. And that's what's kind of fun about 125s to me, is around London up to 30 miles an hour, you can feel like you're wringing their necks a bit, and it's quite fun to ride them even at town speeds. I'm not saying it's like rapid or anything, and realistically I'd only ride a bike like this around town, but it's just good fun. Revvy, the gears shift alright, the clutch is nice and light, it's just nice to ride really. And as I said as well, in the walk around, it does have link brakes, which I'm not a huge fan of. It kind of makes the rear brake pedal redundant, because I don't think that your foot has the same level of control and feedback that you get from controlling the front brake with your fingers. So I'd rather just not use it at all, but it's not really the manufacturer's fault. Really that's just down to the rule makers. But despite the fact that I'm mainly just using the front brake, they're actually pretty good, to be honest. More than good enough for up to 30 or 40 miles an hour anyway, especially if you're riding solo. It's actually a pretty comfy ride as well. The suspension's not bad, but mainly this riding position, I find it really comfortable. It's a nice seat. I like the way that it's scooped. It's got a decent amount of padding to it. I like the mid-position pegs as well. All in all, honestly, it's just a cracking little bike for around town, and if you want something with a bit more character than the typical 125 singles, then this might be worth a shout. There are a couple of little flaws that are worth pointing out if you are considering a bike like this. I mean, I'd always say test ride it yourself anyway and make your own mind up. This is just a bit of a flavour of the bike. But I have noticed the air filter, and this is the same on some other cruisers as well, the bigger bikes. It sticks out quite a way. So if you are narrow in the hips, then you might notice that your right leg's got to be cocked a little further out to accommodate that air filter there. The other thing I've noticed as well is that despite the fact that I like the foot peg position, I'm not that mad about where the shifter and brake pedals are themselves. They're quite high up in relation to the pegs, so I've been searching for them with my toes a little bit every now and again. Not that I've been using the brake that much, but I've certainly noticed it with the gear shifter anyway. And then I guess the other thing is the price. So this is about 3,600 it starts at, so there are certainly cheaper 125s out there, but I don't think they're trying to compete on price with this bike. It's obviously got more to it in terms of design and finish than a lot of other small learner bikes like this. And then of course that V-twin's got to be more expensive to produce than a 125 single. You can hear you get more character out of it, so really it's up to you whether you think it's worth paying the price for those more interesting looks and more interesting engine, or whether a 125 is just a pure practical decision and it's just a cheap economical bike to run. Anyway, that's it for today, but as always I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. Would you rather just go for a single, a simpler bike, or do you think it's worth going for the V-twin in this case? And also, what do you think of the looks? Let me know down below, and if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you next time.